There's enough going on in the moment for me to then try to think of something, say it and translate it into German, and then say it while in the midst of this event, whatever this event may be. And so I want to think about or continue to use or maybe then work with a score for speech that I encountered from a one dance maker, Denise Ernie, who is from the United States. She was a teacher of mine during the MA Soda program, which I made that piece for, and it's something she calls aiming, which is just continually talking non-stop, just trying to keep the words continually flowing out of your mouth as you keep going. And I saw her do it in a piece that had books and a table, and it was a solo, and I thought, wow, that was kind of cool. So I thought I could try it here in this trio. Instead of books, books are bodies, bodies are people. So I'm not really sure how then this would conform. That's not the right word. How that would then work in relation to the piece. And then what I wanted to then think about or talk about while in this trio is sort of the idea of what we are doing in this moment. The question of what is improvised, what is not improvised. And when we talked a little bit about this piece that we would do, I thought that we could then question the idea of the name contact improvisation, which I think is a terrible name. I think we should all stop using it. I think there is contact, and improvising does happen, but then when we say contact improvisation, we're implying that it's improvised, and the idea is that if it is improvised, then there is something else that is not improvised that we are also engaging in, and that implies that sometimes things are improvised and sometimes things are not improvised. And I would say that both are always happening. And trying to foreground one with the term then gets people more confused or continually trying to improvise. But then, like what's his name? Steve Paxton said, improvisation is something that can't keep a name, and a word for something that can't keep a name, I don't know, something like that. The idea being that we are using the tools that we have practiced to create an event, as opposed to trying to go towards a predetermined aesthetic experience that we're trying to recreate in the past, and then continuing with that. Because as I understand improvisation, it's the relationship of three phases happening concurrently. And there's a book over there in the corner, Landscape of the Now by Christos, and I think he talks about this, I forget which page, I tried to find it, but I couldn't find it, that there's often the binary of improvised and choreographed but he said it's not a binary, it's a spectrum. And then Nina Martin in her dissertation also talks about that. She calls it the continuum of deliberation, and that things are more or less deliberated, meaning thought about. But then if you look about deliberation, if you look at the word, de meaning removal, and liberation coming from liberty, the removal of liberty. So you can think of choreography as the removal of liberty, and the other end of the spectrum, improvisation, as having more liberty. But we can then play with that amount of liberty, modes of degrees of freedom, like Ka taught her workshop, her class at the Mahomeo Contract Summer Festival. She was talking about the rolling connection of bodies and how to keep more degrees of freedom. And I was thinking one way that we could think about improvising in contact is going between greater or lesser degrees of freedom. That you're improvising, and in certain moments you're putting yourself or your partners into less available moments of freedom, and that's the improvisation. But then if you follow Zeno's paradox, do you know Zeno's paradox? No. Okay, Zeno was a Greek philosopher. Greek, right? Coincidence? No. And
Natascha, no?
No. Zeno area, for the German speakers. And that Zeno's paradox is that if you shoot an arrow at somebody, right, the arrow will never get there. It won't. You can try it at home. Totally safe. You shoot an arrow, and why will it never get there? You shoot an arrow, right? The arrow then has to go halfway to your friend's chest, right? And then it has to go half of that half. And then it has to go half of that other half. And then it has to go half of that other half. And then half and half and half. And theoretically, you can then divide infinite amount of halves, infinity, so the arrow will never get there. Right? And so, so then back into the limitations of, so then within the limitation, as I was, let's go back to that moment, recreate it. Yeah. Okay, yeah, getting back there. Okay. Yeah. You okay? Yeah, this is art, so it's okay. And even though there's a limitation, there's still an infinite amount of possibility within this limitation, right? So we could spend the next 15 years investigating this limitation and come up with an amazing amount of pieces to get all this funding to do it, right? So, and then the question, so back looking at this event, this dance event, the three of us have danced before, and in different constellations, but I think not as a trio, I don't know. And so improvising the number of contact surfaces with the floor. And so it's within the frame of the limitations that we have, but there's also the choreography that is determined by anatomy, right? Right? And Kermit the Frog. And but then there's also within the limitation that we have, we're looking for all the possibilities. So at the same time, something is choreographed, it's also improvised. Yeah.